Okay, I'm going to do the best I can to help you see how to do your How Does Math Help Me Praise God presentation. I'll be emailing you the presentation worksheet, and you can work through each step. I'm going to work through my steps with you for my presentation, and then you can see how you can work through yours. Number one on your math sheet that you'll get that just says how does math help me? Looks like this. The first thing is just says choose a God created object from your creation to study, and I'm going to choose the egg. There are examples on there that you can choose from, or you can choose your own thing. I had a lot of creative students last year choosing things that I would never even thought of, but there's plenty of creation, and choose something you're interested in. It's fun to learn about it. So I'm going to show, the first step is researching your topic, and that takes a while. So I'm going to show you just briefly some of that stuff I did. A lot of this things you got to just research and understand and just find out the wonder of it all to share with your classmates. But it's going to take longer than the presentation. You're only present this for 5 total minutes maximum. So yeah, this part is time consuming, but it also gives you appreciation of God. So I'm going to show you some websites I used. I know it's probably hard to see on the camera, but this was a lengthy web page that had look at it all just theories and mathematical equations for the shape of an egg and why it's shaped that way, what their guesses are, and then how do we mathematically put numbers on this shape. If we do an ellipse is the same size on both sides here and here. An egg isn't that way. An egg is elliptical, but one side is usually a little fatter than the other side. So it's like almost 2 different ellipses combined together. Anyway, so this was a cool article, and then gave a cool equations all through it, but towards the end here gives this final equation that's just fun to look at for me. The complexity of God, and that he could just speak and have this egg appear and create, but we have to put all these numbers on it to even have an inkling of what he's created. But we've used these now, this information that we've gleaned from it, we use to build things. So again, I'm going to get too detailed, but it's just, to me, a very exciting and cool thing. Another website that shows you exactly how they make this special ellipse where it has a little smaller end than the other end, this is supposed to play, but it doesn't on my computer. My computer's too old. But at any rate, it was a fun thing to learn more about. This one does play and just shows you kind of how that elliptical shape is made. Now this isn't the exact egg shape, but it talks about how it's similar. And then from that, I gleaned a bunch of stuff that I thought was interesting. I want to share some of that with you, and then we'll move on from there. So these are some things I might use if I was presenting this in the class. I might take an egg in and show what I learned. Let me adjust the camera a little bit. So one thing that's cool about an egg, that it is shorter on or narrower on one side. One thing that we think is cool, we think God created it that way. You would think why? But when you roll an egg, it tends to roll in a circle because that one side is narrower. And we think maybe one of the reasons that would be is if an egg is in a nest, it would tend to roll around in the nest instead of away. Whereas the hen has to turn the egg. If you've ever incubated eggs, you have to turn them at least 3 times a day. When the hen returns the egg, it won't just roll out or away, but it will roll around. So that's kind of a cool thought. It's if you put it up on its end, if I place it this way, it has a line of symmetry. We talked about that in class just today, I think, with our parabolas. That line of symmetry would cut it directly in half this way, and it would be symmetrical on both sides, which is kind of cool. Some more math stuff. Cartesian ovals, or some of the stuff I showed you on the screen. Um, let's see what else. Um, Such a cool thing that they're so strong. That I think is the coolest thing for me. If you take an egg and try to crack it this way, like I can push as hard as I might on it, and it's hard to crack. Now, some of you strong men probably can do it, but it's almost impossible for me. Um, and it's a similar thing to a hen laying on an egg. It has pressure all around it. It's a very strong thing, right? A hen laying on it would have pressure all around, a large amount of pressure around. Um, and that's a mother hen would be laying on it. Whereas a baby chick inside of here, if she had um, just a very concentrated or uh, one not all around the egg, but one concentrated peck from inside, she can crack it. And God made it this way for that reason, so that that little hen can peck right out of there. It's just so cool to think about. And that uneven force that that little chick can produce on it can help it get out. That just amazes me, how God can make it so strong yet so weak for those reasons. And I don't know if you knew, but there's all holes in a shell. This is like tiny pinholes everywhere, and that's so the chick can breathe in there. So anyways, lots of cool things. You know, I might take this to class and have someone actually try to do this. I might, you know, my visual might not be a poster in itself, maybe a poster for some of it, and maybe, you know, using this egg for the other part of my visual. All right, let me see my notes. I think I briefly went over everything, or most things. So once you've researched it all, that's the biggest part. Then you have to start thinking about some words. And the words part of it is going to go a little faster. So I'm going to look at my screen again. One other thing I was thinking about as I was putting that egg away is that we also, it's stronger, an egg is stronger with that that side down, and often a mama will lay on it with the wider side down. It's also how we package them when we get them from the store. They are usually packaged that way, so that heavier end is down and the narrower end is up, and that's the strongest way to be sitting on the egg and to transport it. All right, I came up with these words as I was researching. I came up with words that had to do with my things I researched. These are 10 words that I came up with. It's step 3. Step 2 was researching your object. Step 1 was what is your object. Strength, oval, ellipse, evenly, uneven, pressure, protection, arch, symmetry, and perfect. Those are, as I was researching words I wrote down. And then step 4, you go to Webster's Dictionary, and then there's a web page you can click on to get to. If you go to Webster's Dictionary, you're going to, for this next step, put in one of those words that you came up with. I'm going to put in protection, and then I'm going to read then protection and come up with, say, 2, or if there's a really good word, you might come up with 3 different synonyms that protection produces in the Webster's Dictionary definition. The act of protecting, defense, shelter from evil, preservation from loss, injury, or annoyance. So I wrote down shelter from evil and preservation from loss, injury, or annoyance. When I read through all of it, those are the things that stuck out to me, so I just stuck with those. We can type in another word. Let's type in ellipse. Sometimes you get words, and this is a good example of where it didn't really come up with much for ellipse. An ellipsis. So I didn't write anything for that. I think that I came up with plenty for pressure, protection, arch. And then after you now get 2, okay, so you're doing at least 5 words in the dictionary here, and you're getting 2 for each word. So now you have your 5 original words, actually your 10 original words. 5 of them you're coming up with 2 more, so that's another 10. So you're getting, 20, 25 words all describing the egg. And then the next step would be, after you're done with the dictionary, to go to Bible Gateway. And now you can put in any of those words now that you've come up with into Bible Gateway. And I put in protection. I put in a lot of things, but I'm going to put in protection for you to see. And then I came up with 17 Bible verses having to do with protection. I read through all 17, and then if anything connected with me, my life, and what I researched about the egg, I wrote it down as a possible verse that I would want to use. You'll do that with any of the words, and then as you research it, you can narrow it down to 2 verses that you really stuck with you and personally spoke to you. And I ended up, both of mine, one was on perfect and one was on protection. Psalm 91 says, "Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely He will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart." In 2 Samuel 22, verse 31, "As for God, His way is perfect. The Lord's word is flawless. He shields all who take refuge in Him." And that's step 5, is just coming up with those. Now, obviously, when you come up with them, they have to connect to you somehow too, because step 6 says, now you need to think about what God is trying to tell you. How did this object and all the information you gleaned about it help you glorify God, your Creator? How does it help you to have a bigger picture of God? And what did you learn from this object, its beauty, and its orderliness? What did you learn from the Bible passages this process led you to? And what story from your past can you relate to these things you've learned? You should come up with 2 personal connections. So you have 2 verses that you're narrowing down to, and then you should have 2 stories or connections to your own personal life about you. For instance, I talked about when I was little, how when I was lying in bed at night, I would worry or make up situations in my head. We didn't live in a great neighborhood, and often stories of what could happen entered my head. And then how if God takes time to build a perfect home for a small chick to be protected from the weight of his mother, or even more weight than his mother, and a home that can be easily broken by the little chick's little tooth at the appointed time when he's big enough and strong enough, then why wouldn't he take the time to protect me in my home? I'm not even an animal. I'm a human being that's made in his image. So I would just be able to go into that story and explain that with my verse and with my story. And then I would have a second story. And then the last step, I'm not going to go through, but the last step on your sheet is basically what I'm going to use to grade you. Okay? All this information on this first page you'll hand in on these first 3 pages that I just went through on my egg. This page is just for you to see what you need to do on the day you present it. Okay? There's point values for each thing. You need to make sure you have all these things in there, visually and verbally. A lot of them, I think all of them say visually and verbally you need to do these things. So your poster or whatever you have should visually represent your Bible passage, your the mathematical beauty of your object itself, and then your story then could have a picture just to go with your story, but verbally, obviously, you're going to tell your stories. If you follow this rubric carefully, I will use the same thing that day. I'll be looking at this and giving you the points on this rubric. And then you will hand in with after your speech, you will hand this in to me with all of it filled in. And that will be your total project. So hopefully that helps. Thank you for doing it early. Email me if you have questions. Thanks.